I remember the year the Christmas angel hung crooked on the tree. It was in a town where winters were never quite sure what they wanted to be. Some years, the snow came early and stayed, blanketing the houses and fields in soft white. Other years, rain fell instead, and the streets shone with puddles that reflected the colored lights. That particular year, the weather could not make up its mind. One day, the roofs were dusted with frost. The next, they were dripping with cold water, and then back again. The sky seemed to sigh and change its mind every few hours. From up above, where my sleigh rides the higher winds, I could see it all clearly. I watched the clouds trade places, saw the lights of the town turn on earlier each evening, and felt that special hum in the air that always comes as Christmas draws close. Children were making lists. Parents were making plans. Shopkeepers were straightening their displays. Choirs were practicing songs. It all looked as it usually did. And yet, as I passed over the roofs, something felt slightly off. Like a familiar song played in a different key, I followed that feeling down, as I often do, gliding my sleigh lower until I could see the shapes of houses, the glow of windows, the shadows of trees. I traced the streets one by one, breathing in the mixture of chimney smoke and cold air. At last, my attention settled on a small brick house with a sloped roof, a narrow porch, and a single fir tree in the living room window. In that house lived a girl named Lily. She was about 9 years old that year, with dark hair that refused to stay in any braid for very long, and eyes that could look serious one moment and suddenly light up the next. Her house was not large, but it was usually full of sound. Her father's voice reading stories, the kettle whistling, the radio playing songs while her mother cooked, Lily talking to herself as she drew pictures on scraps of paper. This year, however, the house was quieter. A few months before, Lily's grandmother had grown very ill. She had been the one who always arrived with a tin of cookies, who hummed carols while she knitted, who wore earrings shaped like tiny bells in December. She had been the one to lift Lily up so she could put the angel on the top of the tree each year. She had been, in Lily's mind, part of the very shape of Christmas. Then one day, she was gone. Grief sits in a house in strange ways. It doesn't always sit in the loudest room. Sometimes it curls up in the corners, in the silence between sentences, in the spaces where a person used to stand. In Lily's house, it sat near the doorway, where her grandmother's coat no longer hung, and in the kitchen, where her laughter no longer mixed with the clatter of pots. It sat especially in the living room, where the tree now stood. Lily watched her parents carefully that December. Her mother moved more slowly, as if carrying something heavy inside. Her father tried to be cheerful, but his smiles were shorter, his shoulders more bent. They still talked about presents and meals, but their voices sometimes trailed off, their eyes going distant. One evening, a week before Christmas, the three of them stood in the living room surrounded by boxes. The tree was already up, its branches strong and green, smelling of earth and pine. It stood by the front window waiting. "Well," Lily's father said, rubbing his hands together, "shall we decorate?" They opened the boxes, and the familiar ornaments appeared one by one. The shiny red balls that had belonged to her parents when they were first married, the little wooden rocking horse, the tiny knitted stocking, the paper star Lily had made in kindergarten. They hung each one carefully, trying to smile, trying to remember happy stories to go with each piece. Then Lily's mother opened the smallest box, the one with the strongest memory. Inside lay the Christmas angel. She was simple, really, not made of glass or porcelain, but of stiff white fabric shaped into a dress, with golden thread for hair and a small painted face. Her wings were made of lace that time had slightly yellowed. Around her middle was tied a thin, glittering ribbon. She had been on top of that tree for as long as Lily could remember. Before that, she had been on Lily's mother's tree when she was a girl. Before that, she had been on Lily's grandmother's tree when she was a child. 3 generations of Christmases had passed under that angel's watch. Lily's mother held her in both hands, her fingers tracing the worn silk of the dress. For a moment, her eyes closed, and Lily could see that she was not standing in this living room anymore. She was standing on another night, years ago, under another tree, with her own mother. "Do you want to put her up, Mom?" Lily asked softly. Her mother opened her eyes and quickly wiped the corner of one with her thumb. "I think," she began, then stopped. "I think maybe not this year. Maybe she should stay in the box. It feels too hard." Lily felt something go tight in her chest. "But she's always there," she said, "on the top. Grandma lifted me up to put her there last year, remember? She said, 'You're tall enough now, Lily. You can touch the stars.'" Her father cleared his throat. "Maybe we could put a star up instead," he suggested, "just for this year. Keep it simple." Lily looked at the angel, at her small, peaceful, painted face. The idea of her staying in the dark box, hidden away, seemed suddenly unbearable. "She would want to be on the tree," Lily said firmly, surprising herself with the strength of her own voice. "She always wants to see." Her parents exchanged a glance, a whole conversation passing between them in that look. Grief and worry and love and exhaustion, all mixed together. "It might make us sad," her mother said gently. "It already hurts," Lily replied, "but it feels worse when we pretend it doesn't. If we leave her in the box, it's like she never was on the tree at all." Her mother's eyes filled again, but this time she did not look away. "You're right," she whispered. "From my place outside the window, looking in through the reflection of the dark sky on the glass, I watched all this unfold. I cannot stop sorrow from coming into a house. That is not within my power. But I can stand near, and I can sometimes help love find a way through." Lily's father picked her up, his hands strong under her arms. It was harder this year than last. She had grown heavier, and he was more tired. But he lifted, and she reached, holding the angel in her small hands. Carefully, almost reverently, she set the Christmas angel on the top branch. For a heartbeat, the angel leaned too far forward. Lily gasped and steadied her, adjusting the branch, nudging the fabric, until at last she sat straight. Almost. She slanted just a little to one side, as if she were listening intently to something the house was saying. "Crooked," Lily's father said, half a laugh in his voice. "I like her like that," Lily declared. "She's paying attention." They stepped back and looked at the tree. It glowed with the soft light of the string of bulbs they had wound around its branches. The ornaments caught the light in different ways, some shining, some merely glowing. The angel watched over it all, slightly tilted, her lace wings casting tiny shadows on the ceiling. For a few moments, the three of them stood quietly. Then Lily's mother reached for their hands. "What should we say?" she asked. They were not people used to making speeches. Their prayers were usually short, their words plain. But Lily took a breath. "Thank you," she said, "for all the Christmases before. And please help us not to be so sad that we forget to be happy too." Her parents squeezed her hands. "That will do," her father murmured. The days that followed were strange and mixed. There were moments of laughter, when the cat tried to climb the tree, when her father burned the toast, when her mother slipped on the kitchen tiles and caught herself with a surprise shout, then started giggling. There were moments of hard silence, when someone mentioned her grandmother's name and the whole room went quiet. There were times when Lily felt angry without knowing exactly why. Each evening, they lit the tree and sat nearby. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they read, sometimes they just looked at the lights. Lily often found her eyes drawn to the angel, with her crooked posture and her little painted smile. "Are you lonely up there?" she would whisper when others weren't listening. "I miss her too." On Christmas Eve, the sky decided at last what it wanted to do. It began to snow, not the hesitant, half-hearted flakes of earlier in the month, but thick, confident snow that fell steadily, turning the whole street into something new. From my sleigh, high above, I watched the roofs whiten, the lamplight soften, the footprints appear and then disappear, as the snow filled them in. When the time came for me to visit Lily's house, the world outside was quiet, the sound of my sleigh bells muffled by the soft blanket forming on the ground. I landed on the roof as lightly as I could, whispering to the reindeer to keep still. The chimney was narrow but manageable. I have squeezed through worse. Inside, the living room was lit by the tree and a single lamp. The presents her parents had managed to gather were already tucked under the branches. A book wrapped in brown paper, a small box of colored pencils, a soft scarf. They weren't many, but they had been chosen with care. I stepped softly across the room, boots leaving no mark on the rug. My work, in moments like that, is not only to place gifts. Sometimes it is to notice what has been placed already: the photograph on the mantel, the plate of cookies left with a shy note, the small angel on the tree, leaning ever so slightly to one side. I looked up at her. "You have seen a lot," I murmured. Of course, she did not answer. She was only cloth and thread and paint. And yet, objects that have been loved for generations hold something. Not a soul, no, but a kind of echo of the care that has been poured into them. I have always felt it. I reached into my sack and took out a very small item, one that might not look like much to anyone else. A thin, almost invisible length of the finest thread, shimmering faintly in the lamplight. I stood on my toes and gently tied one end around the branch beside the angel, the other around the tiny loop sewn on the back of her dress. It did not straighten her completely. She still leaned just a little. But now she was steadier, the tilt purposeful rather than precarious. "There," I said softly, "you can keep listening without falling." Then I turned my attention to the gifts, adding one more small package to the pile. Something simple I knew Lily would like: a notebook with thick, smooth pages and a pen with ink that would not blot easily. On the first page of the notebook, I wrote a single sentence in neat, careful letters: "Tell me about her." Then I was gone, back up the chimney, onto the roof, into the cold night where the snowflakes kissed my face as I climbed back into the sleigh. Morning came. Lily woke to the sound of the kettle in the kitchen and the faint hum of the radio. She scrambled out of bed, her feet finding her slippers, and hurried to the living room. The tree lights were on, as they always were on Christmas morning. The presents sat beneath the branches, as they always did. But something was different. She tilted her head. The angel was still crooked, but not quite as much. She looked as if she were standing firmly now, leaning in to listen to the family below. Lily's mother came in with 2 mugs of cocoa, her hair still mussed from sleep. Her father followed, rubbing his eyes. "Look," Lily said, "she's not going to fall anymore." Her parents looked up. Her father said, "I thought we tied her on well last night." Her mother shook her head. "We didn't tie her at all. We just set her there." They shared a look, the kind adults share when they suspect something has happened that they cannot quite explain and are not sure they want to try. They sat together on the floor, passing presents, laughing at the too long scarf and the book with the slightly crooked cover, tasting the simple breakfast, letting tears come when they came, not hiding them. When Lily opened the notebook and saw the words on the first page, her breath caught. "Tell me about her," she read aloud. Her parents looked at each other again. "About who?" her father asked gently, though he was almost sure he knew. "About Grandma," Lily said. I think I'm supposed to write stories about her, so I don't forget." Her mother's eyes shone. "That," she said, "is a beautiful idea." So, after the presents were unwrapped and the dishes were washed, they sat together by the tree. Lily opened her new notebook and with slightly shaky letters wrote, "My grandmother's name was Elise." Then she looked up. "Your turn," she said to her parents. "Tell me what to write next." They did. They told her how Elise used to sneak extra sugar into the cake, how she once laughed so hard at a joke that she scared the cat, how she sang the wrong words to carols and refused to correct herself, insisting her version was better. They told her about the first time she bought the Christmas angel from a little market stall when she was 16. with the very first coins she had ever earned on her own. As they talked, the room felt less empty. The grief did not vanish. It never does. Not entirely. But it sat down beside the love and made room for it. The tree lights glowed. The crooked angel watched over them, steadied by a thread no one could see, leaning in as if she too were listening to every word. From the sky, later that night as I made my way back north, I looked down at that small brick house with the sloped roof, now resting under a smooth layer of snow. Through the lit window, I could just make out the shadow of the tree, the curve of three heads close together on the couch, the small shape of the angel on top. I thought, not for the first time, that Christmas is not about making everything perfect. It is about holding, in the same hands, the joy and the ache, the laughter and the tears, and discovering that they can live side by side. It is about remembering that love does not end when a person's footsteps fade from the hallway. So if this Christmas finds you thinking of someone who is not here anymore, someone whose presence once shaped your holidays, remember Lily and the crooked angel. Remember that it is all right to feel the pain of missing them and still hang their ornament, still cook their recipe, still tell their stories. Remember that speaking their name and laughing at their old jokes is another way of keeping them close. I will be out there, as I always am, flying over quiet houses and busy ones, over lonely rooms and crowded tables. And when I see a tree with a slightly crooked ornament that no one could bear to pack away, when I hear a family telling stories about someone who is gone, with tears in their eyes and smiles on their faces, I will think of that Christmas angel and the thread that held her steady. Merry Christmas, my friend. May your tree hold room for every memory, and may your heart find that even in the midst of sorrow, there is still a light that leans gently in your direction and refuses to go out.